You're listening to the GWP St. Patrick's Day and March Madness special. I'm your host, Isaac Hedges, joined once again by co-host Jacob Fulmer. Jake, what have you got for us today?
Today, we will be giving some details into the sports betting NBA scandal, talking about some Cinderella stories from the past years of March Madness, as well as taking a look at St. Patrick's Day and some of the history behind it.
Alrighty, a lot of big stuff going on. Certainly with basketball, we'll get right into it, of course, is St. Patrick's Day. Of course, St. Patrick being the patron saint of Ireland. Towards the end of the show, we'll get into a little bit more of the history of that, but to our viewing, listening audience out there, certainly, if any of you happen to be in Ireland, well, happy St. Patrick's Day. So, Jake, I realize there's recently been some scandal in the NBA with some sports betting. What do you know about that?
Well, it sounds like that we've had some players that have actually been participating and therefore throwing games intentionally so that they could gain some money out of this gambling from the sports betting. That's to my knowledge. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I think you have some more details on it.
Certainly, yeah. So it's been a couple of the officials. Some of those, of course, Chauncey Billups had a role, of course, in the Portland Trailblazers team. Of course, Damon Jones was an assistant coach for another one of those NBA teams, and Terry Rozier, who played a guard for the Miami Heat. So just a few major figures in the NBA. They were all wrapped up in this. And, of course, we've talked about things like this in the past, earlier this past year, of course, in our past season, our Legislative Day special. We talked about a little bit of scandal recently at that time within the NFL with some football referees who were connected with sportsbook accounts, which of course is big no-no, as referees are supposed to be impartial. They're not supposed to do that. And for a similar thing, if you're employed in the NBA, certainly you're not supposed to do that either in terms of sports betting, certainly in this case, because you would have insider information. And well, that is exactly what these guys, Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, Terry Rozier, among others connected with the ring, but those are kind of the major figures that were connected with this. They're using their inside information from the NBA, of course, betting on those games, and they kind of doubled down on it, actually, and played poker and, of course, made their bets using that same insider information. So a huge scandal this past year within the NBA.
Well, let's go ahead, and now we're going to check to see what Copilot has to say about that. So, hey, Copilot.
Isaac, good to hear from you. What's on your mind today?
Yes, so the scandal we saw in the past year in the NBA, there were some people employed by the NBA connected with these illegal sports betting accounts, Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, Terry Rozier. What were their repercussions for that sports betting using their inside information from the NBA? Were they fired after that, or were there any legal repercussions? What happened?
Well, Isaac, it looks like the NBA did indeed take some pretty strong action following that scandal. There were a couple of high-profile figures like Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier who were placed on immediate leave while the legal process unfolded. As for the fallout, It definitely had some legal repercussions, and the NBA is cooperating with authorities while they sort things out. The short answer is yes, there were consequences, and it's a pretty big deal for the league. So tell me, what got you curious about that situation?
I think that's all we
So,
need from
absolutely.
Copilot. But there you, there it is. I mean, they got fired. Essentially, they were let
They did
go.
naturally, and it's easy to see why. Very easy to see why after that sort of scandal in the NBA.
Yes. So, of course, NBA, of course, is not where March Madness happens, but the but March Madness more relates to the college
All
basketball
right, still
playoffs.
basketball nonetheless, though.
Yes, basketball related. And so let's get into March Madness, as we do know that this is actually the beginning of it. The first round and the second round are going to be happening the rest of this week and into the weekend. And so we know that there have been quite a few Cinderella stories the past few years in March Madness that have really taken people by surprise.
Absolutely.
So, of course, we know that the number one seed has the highest chance of winning the March Madness championship here. In fact, 29 national championship games have featured at least one of the number one seeds, with 25 number one seeds going on to win the title. This most recently happened in 2024 with UConn, who was number one, who won it all. But we also have number two seeds, of course, that haven't made it quite as far. They have only reached the title a total of 13 times since 1985. The last number two seed to win was Villanova back in 2016. But some people may be asking, what about the lower seeds? Of course, 16 is the lowest seed, 13, 14, 15, and 16 being at the bottom. So, what about their success in March Madness?
That's a great question.
And so, if we look at that here, a total of 6 number 13 seeds have made it to the Sweet 16. So, they made it past the first two rounds. The most recent time that happened was LaSalle back in 2013. They reached the Sweet 16 round. If we talk about the number 14 seed, there was two occasions where the number 4 seed, number 14, made it to the Sweet 16. That was back with Chattanooga in 1997 and Cleveland State in 1986. And then the number 15 seed back in 2022, we saw St. Peter's that made it all the way to the Elite Eight. Of course, that was the furthest that any of the lower seeds had made it. And then everybody keeps thinking that the number 16 seed may finally pull off a win. And they have a couple of times. The most recent example of that, it's only happened twice, but it came when UMBC was able to beat Virginia back in 2018. Again, it's only happened twice, and that's the most recent example of when a number one seed has lost in the first round. The only two times in which that has occurred, those teams have lost in the second round. So a number 16 seed has never made it to the Sweet 16, like we've seen with some of those other lower seeds, the 13, 14, and 15 seed.
Absolutely, very interesting there. So just another one of those kind of underdog stories from March Madness. And perhaps we'll see some more of those certainly going into this season. Jake, any predictions on that, or is it too early on to tell?
Well, I will say that Vanderbilt had one of the most successful starts, so we'll have to see if they're able to continue here in the rest of this season, as they actually won their first 15 games in a row, going all the way through January 8th. And so we'll have to see. There's certain teams that have certainly climbed out, I guess you could say, of the trenches and have really made their way through. Will we have another 16 seed team win? People didn't think it would ever happen, but now it's happened twice in recent history. I would say at this point, it really doesn't matter what seed you are, you still have a chance. And St. Peter's, as we mentioned, they certainly they made it clear that you can make it at least to the Elite Eight as a number 15 seed. That's probably the biggest Cinderella story that we've seen in recent times. Again, that took place 4 years ago, back in 2022. So we'll have to see if that happens again this year.
Certainly, it'll be interesting to follow those games, follow the March Madness contest, and kind of see how things shake out. Of course, a lot of a lot of big games to tune into there. And of course, if you're not tuning into all of those games, another place that you can find the scores, another great place, is just tune in to GWP News Weekly again in the coming weeks for the latest on college basketball, certainly as we go through March Madness. So some major events there. And if you miss a game, don't sweat it. Just tune in for GWP News Weekly. Very easy to make it. Just tune in sometime during the week, and we'll get you caught up on all the latest information on that. All that and much more over on GWP News. Jake?
Yeah, and so again, that's something that we'll continue to do every week, so you can tune in and get the updates once a week. But until then, until we have our next newscast where we're able to do that, we want to give you some insight into what the 2026 March Madness schedule is going to look like. So, we're going to try this again. Hey, co-pilot. Hey, co-pilot.
Hey Isaac, great to chat with you again. So what's on your mind today?
Can we see a schedule of the March Madness games for 2026?
Absolutely, let's break it down for you. The 2026 March Madness schedule kicks off on Selection Sunday, which falls on March 15th. The first 4 games are on March 17th and 18th in Dayton, Ohio. Then we dive into the full-on madness. The first round of 64, is spread over March 19th and 20th, and the second round on March 21st and 22nd. You've got games happening in places like Buffalo, Greenville, Oklahoma City, Portland, Tampa, Philly, San Diego, and St. Louis. For the Sweet 16, on March 26th and 27th, the action shifts to Houston, San Jose, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., and the Elite Eight follows on March 28th and 29th. Finally, the grand finale, the Final Four, is in Indianapolis on April 4, and the championship game caps it off on April 6. So yeah, a full-on basketball whirlwind. Anything else you want to dive into?
That is it.
Got it, Isaac. Well, if that's a wrap for today, no problem at all. Feel free to ping me anytime you want to chat, or when something new pops up.
Absolutely.
Yes, and again, of course, you can catch the first 4 games later this evening as well as tomorrow, with the first round beginning in a couple of days, as you just heard there. And don't wait around too long to watch these March Madness games, because we will crown a champion on Monday, April 6th.
Absolutely. That date is fast approaching. So,
Yes.
a lot of exciting games going on. It'll be interesting to see how each of those shake up and who emerges victorious.
Yes, and of course, we did take a month-long break here on the podcast, but we are back up and running, so make sure to also tune in, because next Tuesday, we will be airing our 60th episode here of GWP, and we will be going into a debate on organ harvesting. So you will most certainly want to stay tuned for our 60th episode. It will be one of our biggest debates that we have done thus far in our new 2026 debate series.
Absolutely. That's our 60th episode. Major thing coming up. That'll be a large component of our 60th episode, a debate on organ harvesting. Just one of the components of that episode. A little something we're going to call What's in Your Pocket. And hopefully you don't have organs in your pocket. No, that's not why we're calling it that. Of course, recently, that is one thing that we came across. We'll get into it a little bit more, of course, in that episode, so you'll have to tune in for that to see what happens. But long story short, many people check that box at the DMV, that organ donor box, without thinking twice about it, without really considering what it means. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Your driver's license, one thing that might be in your pocket, along with some pocket change, some coins, potentially pennies, which have been discontinued recently. We'll talk about that also. One more thing that you might find in your pocket is your smartphone. What's the deal with those? We'll find out tune in to the grand 60th episode coming up
Next
on
week.
the Great World Podcast. Yes, next week. It'll be a great one. You won't want to miss it.
And it'll be at a special time. It'll be at 9 o'clock next Tuesday. So make sure to tune in from a week from today for that episode. It will be quite a great one. Again, one of our biggest debates that we will be doing on that organ harvesting, as well as the What's in Your Pocket, just overall episode that we will be doing for our 60th episode. But for now, of course, today is still St. Patrick's Day. So let's get into a bit of the history. Isaac, you want to go ahead and take us into kind of a brief overview of that?
Yeah, a bit of the history of that. Well, certainly, of course, most people know that St. Patrick is the patron saint of Ireland. The legend has it that in 432, when he arrived in Ireland, that the country was struggling with a snake infestation. He came in and drove the snakes out of Ireland, as it were. Now, that part, of course, is largely legend. Whether they really were dealing with a snake infestation, a snake infestation at that time is up for debate, but probably what he's most known for is bringing Christianity to Ireland. So, of course, before that, a great deal of madness. Of course, Ireland was pagan before St. Patrick arrived, so it's he that is credited with coming over and converting Ireland. So a lot of interesting history behind St. Patrick there, the patron saint of Ireland. Again, of course, another sort of legend, sort of tradition on St. Patrick's Day is that you're supposed to wear green, which neither of us are wearing, though.
Which I guess that
luckily,
means that we're gonna
yes,
be
I suppose
pinched.
it does. Oh, come on.
Oh, man, I should have worn green next time for St. Patrick's
Yes,
Day.
yeah, should have. If only I could have, I don't know, torn off a bit of that green screen and gotten away with that.
Yeah, that certainly probably would have been, of course, then it would be blue for everybody sitting at home, and so then
Yes,
everybody
it would,
be-
but really it would be green, and they can't
Would
really
be-
pinch us through the screen now, can they?
That is very true. In fact, when is St. Patrick's Day next year?
St. Patrick's
That's a
Day
trick
next
question.
year. I couldn't tell you.
March
You know?
17th again.
March 17th again.
It's
Well, I
annually
guess that
every
would make
single year.
sense.
So, kind of a trick question with that, yeah.
Yes.
And so, well, that was certainly some good history on that. And so, as we kind of start to begin to round everything in.
Well,
Hi.
did you see that red and green
what
out
was
there?
that? Oh my gosh.
A short, stubby little red and green thing.
It just broke through the glass.
Broke through the glass. Oh my lord, we better get out of here.
What was that?
Heck through that ball.
I don't know. Sir,
Get away that
I
little
thought I saw somebody. It was like a kid dressed in green or,
Yeah, I bet it was.
or something to that. Oh my God! No! Oh, where'd he go?
I don't know. He kind of knocked me over too, pal.
I didn't see where he went.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Oh man, fell on the ground.
We better get him now.
Yes.
You see him out there in the distance? Is that him?
Yes, it is. Let's go. Gotta get him. Somebody doesn't just push me in the dirt and get away with it.
Oh, no, you don't, buddy. Get away with it.
Can't be surprised now. We've been through much worse. So much worse. Where is he? Where'd he go? I think we lost him again.
I don't know. He would have gone down there.
No? I don't think. Probably. Oh, no!